Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu jami'an. Ahlan wa sahlan wa marhaba bikum. Today I'd like to talk about the Daniel Haqiqatjou website, two particular articles. One of the articles is criticizing CRT, critical race theory, and the second article is about white supremacy. Today I will discuss both articles from my observation. I'm going to talk about what Daniel Haqiqatjou don't say, and that's the cue or the clue to this particular video. What you don't say should bring about some type of thought, and I'm having critical thinking in my aspect of criticizing a particular article. First, we're going to discuss on Daniel Haqiqatjou website his article addressing white supremacy. This particular article, I read it in details, and from Daniel's writing's perspective, thinking's perspective, I agree with his approach dealing with the white supremacist, where he takes some theories as the replacement theory and he disputes the replacement theory, and he shows white supremacists that many of their ideas are based on misunderstandings and racism. And I agree much with Daniel Haqiqatjou article that he wrote addressing white supremacists. He goes further to say, in a nice way, speaking way, meaning writing way, where he's going to show some leniency with the white supremacists and show them with kindness where they have many mistakes. When he brings up an argument with them about white supremacists wants to have their own land and be free from any other cultures, like any other country have their people and they have their land, Daniel tells them that many countries that white people conquer, that the people who were originally there, you kill them or you destroy them. You kill them and destroy them. So you reside in lands where originally this is not your country or not your land, and you destroy the people that was there, the indigenous peoples, and you oppress them. He showed them in a nice and kind way. He takes a lot of their theories and their thinking, like I said before, the replacement theory, and he shows its faults. Then he goes to the next level with the white supremacists, where these white nationalists, and he showed them their faults. In a kind way, Daniel invites them to Islam, which is something I agree with. I believe Muslims who are white or have a white background need to be calling their peoples to Islam, especially if they're racist and white nationalists. They need to call them to Islam. So with this article, I agree with Daniel Haqiqatjou, how he critique the white nationalists and show them where some of their faults in their thinking come from and what should be the solution or the final conclusion to what the situation is about. Next is Daniel critiquing CRT. Now, CRT is not a movement like white nationalist movement or white supremacy. Rather yet, CRT is a symptom of white nationalists. Just like Daniel wrote about the outcome of white supremacy, giving them some dawah, how they dealt with non-whites and their oppression. Daniel, when he critiques CRT and talking to black people now, because critical race theory is about blacks, talking about systemic racism of white supremacy in America, Daniel does not have the same approach, the same leniency, the same softness which he have with the white nationalists. Daniel says we're ready to CRT. He said he doesn't like it, not because the LBGQTI agenda, because CRT has nothing to do with LBGQTI agenda. Rather yet, he says the CRT is talking about black people experience with white supremacy and racism, and he ignores it and say CRT is victimhood. I'll say it again. He says CRT, it is victimhood. He critiques CRT, black people experience dealing with white supremacists, as being victimhood, and he rejects a CRT because he sees it as victimhood. In his writing, I looked deep into it more, and I noticed something. What I noticed is what I didn't notice. In Daniel talking with the white supremacists, he was lenient, he was soft, he was considerate. And then at the end, he invited the people to Islam with CRT, which is dealing with black people experience with racism in America, with white supremacy. Daniel, nowhere in his writing, invite black people to Islam. Nowhere in his writing did Daniel show any leniency or kindness or even Islamic perspective on how to deal with racism. Daniel does not write in any of his criticism related to CRT on his website an Islamic perspective of dealing with racism and white supremacy. So he criticized CRT and does not recognize it or the legitimacy of black people experience of white supremacy in America. He says white people experience, black people experiences with systemic racism, which led to them being enslaved, which led black people to being enslaved, which led black people losing their culture, language, religion, wealth, and identity due to the hatred for blacks because of white supremacy. And due to white supremacy and the ending of slavery, the introducing of Jim Crow laws, which affect the black community, which affect them economically, socially, mentally. And from Jim Crow, the effects of systemic racism in the legal system, Jim Crow was not only in the South, but Jim Crow was also in the North. There was segregation in the North. And black people now allowed to enter certain industries. And the segregation and the racism also in the education system, also in the health field or the health segment, which also affect the lives, the physical being, the well-being of blacks. Daniel ignores all of that and say critical race theory is only, in the end of the day, victimhood. Nowhere does he recognize what black people went through during systemic racism, during slavery, Jim Crow, redlining, mass incarceration, the crack epidemic, and the AIDS epidemic, how black people experience from racism, from white supremacists, how it affect our livelihood, our well-being, our mental state, our physical state, and how white supremacy is much in the U.S. Constitution, legal system, and laws. Daniel Haqiqatjou discredit all of black people's experience of oppression in America as being victimhood. Nowhere does he tell or invite blacks to Islam in this article, like he invited the white nationalists to Islam. Nowhere does he invite black people to what are the Islamic solutions to deal with these issues, like he did with the white supremacists. So this is my conclusion about Daniel Haqiqatjou, is about what you didn't say. You have leniency and kindness with the white supremacists, but when you talk about black people's experience from white supremacy, you criticize it as CRT, you criticize it as being victimhood. And this is for all those Muslims who support Daniel Haqiqatjou. He's not a caller to Islam. He's not a scholar in Islam. And I'm sorry, a Howard Harvard degree or Harvard PhD does not replace the Quran, neither does it replace the Sunnah, and neither does it replace Islamic education, which Daniel does not have. And his website, his platform, he's lenient with the white supremacists, calling to Islam, listening to their issues and their complaints. Why white people hate blacks, why white people hate non-whites. He listened to it. He has some kind of kindness with them. And then he tells them, hey, this is not right. This is wrong. You need to come to the religion. With CRT criticism of Daniel Haqiqatjou on his website, none of the above. No Islamic solutions. He does not mention one time one Islamic solution to deal with white supremacy. Not even one time in the CRT article. He just labeled it as victimhood. No dawah, no inviting black people to Islam. But his article with the white nationalists, at the end of it, he's inviting them to Islam. And from the videos I have posted on my Facebook account of Daniel debating with a Nazi, the Nazi wins the argument when Daniel, when he tells Daniel, we agree with the same thing. The Nazis, what we want and what we believe in, you also believe in. And Daniel says, yes. This is not a da'i in Islam. This is not a caller to Islam. This is not a caller to Islam, where the Nazi convinced the caller, who supposed caller, al-muta'alim, huwa muta'alim, Daniel is a muta'alim, charlatan. He admits that, yeah, we do agree with the same thing with the Nazis. That's why in his article with the white supremacists and white nationalists, he's lenient with them and soft with them. But when his criticism of CRT as being victimhood, and nowhere did he bring any Islamic solutions dealing with systemic racism in America. Neither did he bring any Islamic solution from dealing with racism of white supremacists. Neither does he bring any Islamic solutions on how to critique and deal with white supremacy and racism. Nowhere in our article about CRT does he ever bring up anything from Islam solutions for white supremacy, and neither does he invite black people to accept Islam as a medium to solve their issues dealing with racism. Instead, he says CRT is victimhood. He doesn't even bring an Islamic solution or definition. What is victimhood? Are you saying that blacks, what we went through, are we as victims in CRT teaching Americans about the history of white supremacy and how it impacts black people's society, how it impacts the well-being of black people, and how it affects black people today, how white supremacy thoughts, ideas have influenced the US legal system and policies against black people? Daniel said this is victimhood. And unfortunately, the Muslims going to embrace racists like Daniel Haqiqatjou in America. It shows a lot about the minds of a lot of the African-American Muslims and Muslims in general who follow Daniel Haqiqatjou. You don't have a good Islamic understanding. And you cannot replace YouTubers, Facebook with Islamic knowledge. Daniel Haqiqatjou do not replace Islamic knowledge. He's not a sheikh in Islam. He's definitely not a student of knowledge. And that goes again why Daniel is invited to Islamic conferences when he has no Islamic knowledge, because he has a degree from Harvard. Are we now worshiping Eurocentric academics because somebody has a degree from Harvard? This replaced Islam and Quran and Sunnah and Islamic academics? Are we worshiping the law, or are we worshiping Eurocentric beliefs in their system, even if it's their institution of education? That's why he's given the preference. a degree from Harvard or a PhD from Harvard, and then his field of his degree, philosophy. There's no place in Islam for philosophy. Matter of fact, that is the thing that misguided the Muslims. Kalam. These are the things that misguided the Muslims in the past. This is why we see a lot of sects of sectarianism in Islam, because Kalam. So Kalam, because he has a degree in this philosophy, he has a degree in this. This makes him a Muslim scholar. Neither we haven't just lost our intellect, but it shows the lack of understanding that many of the people who are promoting him, they really lack the Islamic understanding. And because you're still worshiping Eurocentric education, you're still in love with the kuffar, and you're in love with Eurocentric education, the same Eurocentric principles that forged colonialism, that fought against the Muslims. Now you're inviting this type of thinking, bringing it into the Islamic circles of knowledge to be somebody we take knowledge from. The Muslims are, have you lost your mind? And this is why I told Muslims it's very important to have an Islamic education and don't follow personalities, even if they have Sheikh on their name in America. Go look for the authentic scholars. Go look for the authentic scholars. Go travel to the Muslim land where the religion is still being preserved, where Islamic knowledge is still being preserved. In America, it's whatever goes in America. You got the far right and the far left amongst the Muslims now. The far left and the far right. You like Daniel Haqiqatjou because he is what? Promoting against the far left? Well, him himself, he has principles and the methodology and the propaganda from the far right. And it's right there in your faces. It's right there on his website and his social media. And you're still embracing this man because he has a message against the far left. You don't like liberals and Democrats. So the Muslims, you would dislike the liberals and the Democrats, but that means that you're gonna like the ultra-right and the far right and the conservatives. You're gonna like white supremacy because it's mixed with the far right agenda or the conservatives agenda. You're gonna roll with that. Where is Islam in this, man? This is a sign that the Muslims in America don't have a good understanding of Islam who follow these things. I say it again. The Muslims who follow these peoples and these groups, it shows that you lack the Islamic education and Islamic understanding. Either they're going to be far right or you far left. That's where the Muslims in America is at. Islam is a joke in America if you think like this. If you're following this, far right and far left. I got one of the followers of Daniel Haqiqatjou who told me on Facebook that it's okay for the Muslims to take side with the white nationalists. And he told me he agreed with Daniel Haqiqatjou's approach with the white nationalists. He said, because at the end of the day, the white nationalists are against the liberals and the Democrats, and that's our enemy today. Jahl Jaddin. Jahl Jaddin. This is a follower of Daniel. Now imagine now, Daniel, you're bringing him now to the places where it's supposed to be Muslim scholars who have sacred knowledge. This is the person you bring as a speaker now. You're going to corrupt the Muslims with this type of person. You're going to corrupt the Muslim youth with this type of thinking. And Daniel has no Islamic degree. He has no qualifications in Islam. And the majority of his teachers from his mouth, they are takfiri or they're deviant Sufis. Shame on you guys, man. Shame on you guys. You know, I have a book coming out soon, inshallah. The name of the book is called Adabu Talab al-Ilm. It's by Sheikh Dr. Salih Al-Fawzan, Hafidhullah. And part of the book, I'm introducing the Sheikh statements and writings from all his other material about Ta'alam and Muta'alam. Ta'alam, miseducated Muslims, or the miseducated, falsely educated Muslim, also known as the charlatan sheikh, the fake sheikh, the charlatan sheikh. That is Daniel Haqiqatjou. When you bring him to these conference and give him a platform in the Islamic conference, this guy is the muta'alim, because he have a degree from Harvard in philosophy. You give him position in Islamic conference, what are you going to talk about? Awu alayna, awu alayk. Shame on us and shame on you. May Allah guide us, man. A lot of the Muslims, the understanding of Islam in the West, for some of the Muslims, not all, it's very weak. It's very weak. It's very weak. How you mix in dawah, lillahi subhanahu wa ta'ala, democratic politics or Republican politics. Oh, billahi. How do you mix in the dawah platform, dawah lillahi, you mix with it far right politics or the far left politics? Awru alaykum. This is where the Muslims are at today. Far right politics, far left politics. Stuff is a joke.